Good morning guys, how are you doing? It's been a bit of a crazy week again. I've struggled to get some footage together, but today it looks like we can get this one going on. Now this is just a regular old house, but it's having quite a lot done to it. So our areas that we need to get done are this hallway area, which has a light stipple, nothing's been primed up. It's like an old dado rails come off, so we've got a few holes here into plasterboard. Look, it looks like it's tacked. Need a stop bead up there because I think we probably feather into this edge, and here we're not going anywhere further, and we'll have to feather up into this area here. The living room is one that we did previously, and it's obviously still not painted. I believe this was a 49 49.19 or 49.16 square meters. It's a little bit further down the playlist. Have a look. In here, look, we've got the electrician here this morning. I was hoping to beat him here this morning, but he's on one doing this stuff in here, putting down lights in and getting his feed sorted. So all these need putting back up. The walls are in a little bit of a state. Look, we've got a few bits and pieces that we need to sort out. Again, this is like dot and dabbed onto block, it looks like. So we've got a bit of repairing to do of certain bits and pieces. This is a kitchen. That we've got paper that needs to come off and stuff. So there is a lot of messing around before we can really start looking at putting any plaster on these walls or ceilings at all. And also it bleeds through into this area again, which is the same kind of deal. Look, this weird, this wood. I'm not sure what's going on there. I'm sure everything will reveal itself in due course. So, whilst the electrician's in here, all I can really do is get things like sockets off and just have a slow sort of warm up to getting my head in the idea of actually doing some plaster work. So, yeah. Well, that, look, we can see what's going on here now. Ideally, anything that's loose like this and you can come off with your own hand really does need to come off. But look, that is, what is that? There's plasterboard ends there. There's another bit of plasterboard. There's no scrim on it, but there's a bead on there. Okay. Looks like somebody's been having some fun in here at some point. So let's get cracking on with the prep, and I'll get back to you in a minute when something a little bit more exciting occurs. So on this ceiling here, look, I've just pulled this ceiling rose down just to fix into the light, as you can see. And quite often you need to keep the screws. Now, sometimes you can put them in here, but if you don't tell anybody that they're in there, they'll be looking around all over them and quite possibly not realise they're in there, and then actually screw it back up, and when the electric's on, it might touch a connection. So what you probably can do, screws, a little bit of tape, everybody can see exactly what's happened. So as you can see, because we're doing all our own prep, we're starting to learn the room. You know, sometimes you've got a labourer in or something, you go, all right, seal all these walls up, etc, etc. You're not learning the room. I've given the ceiling a bit of a light scrape over the Artex to take the worst of those pimples off. And by using, where's it gone? This thing here, 6-inch blade, blah, 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 blah. It's quite sharp, there's razor in there. The Artex is quite hard and it seems quite stable, so at that point, scraping that back, I get an indication of how stable that is and whether I'll be happy plastering over it or not, and in this case I believe I will be happy plastering over it. And as we're going around the walls and stuff, we can see, as I just showed you previously, now this is the paper into the plasterboard. Now look, somebody has tiled over this. It would look like that's tiled out to me, and as it's come off, it's ruptured some of the paper. Not an uncommon occurrence when you do tiling straight onto plasterboard. Okay, it might be seen like a quick and easy thing to do, and it was probably done when the place was built, to be honest with you. But even a layer of paint will help, you know, give it that little bit of extra protection. Something very bizarre has happened to this windowsill here. It looks like at some point something's been changed, and it has, that's multi-finish. Looks like a whole section of plasterboard is gone, and it's not on dab, so we've got this cavity here. Look, you see the depth of it, and it looks to me like somebody's filled that up completely with multi-finish, brushed it in, tiled over it. And of course, when you have got paper over this, not that it's a common mistake, but it's certainly a trap to fall into. What is actually loose paper and what is actually plasterboard? It's really easy, if you're a little bit inexperienced and not sure what to watch out for, to start digging right into the plasterboard if you find yourself in a property which has had walls like this done. So it's obviously been taped and jointed. This looks like it's all behind the old units. Just stops there. There's no paper going underneath this paint. So you see, it's been lined. It has been painted. It has had a line of paint. Yeah, it's been lined straight onto plasterboard. So yeah, it's really easy to keep digging into it. But don't worry, all these little flaps and stuff like this here, which is a good example of what's going on. When we get our priming agent around everything, which in this case I believe I will be using SBR or PVA, or you can use the grits. Grits is probably the least favourite of mine. I only ever use grits in certain circumstances, and this isn't one of them. So I think I'm going to benefit from the amount of properties you get from SBR, because it's much more efficient at killing suction, and in its neat state it's a lot thinner. So PVA has a tendency, because you have to water it down, but if you don't water it down enough, PVA has a tendency to kind of like make a skin on top. And in this particular situation, I think a couple of coats of SBR on these porous areas, one to soak in, and the next one to kind of like seal a surface on top of that, but it soaks in but not quite so far with the second coat. And SBR is much more efficient at killing the suction down, and considering we've got quite a bit to do here, I don't mind killing the suction down as much as possible. PVA does exactly the same thing, but it's less efficient at doing it. So sometimes if you want to keep some suction and you've got a small patch to do, PVA might be a better option, but in here I believe SBR is the way forward and probably the best thing to use, although you can use either or either in this situation. Okay, of course we're going to be putting brand new beads, plastering beads, thin coat beads, but look, this is what I just found here, just giving this a scrape. So this is the old dry lining tapes, let's see. So you see it's got a little bit of metal there, okay? And there'll be a little bit of metal on this side, okay? So obviously there's the break, and then the tape goes over the corners, then they feather both sides in. So these are the things that tend to pop. Again, here's another one, look. And this is probably why you could argue that joint and taping, things like this, is inferior to plastering. They do it more for speed, you know, it dries out a lot quicker, but look, where the tile has been removed here, it has upset that metal tape. So really, we're gonna need to pop it off. beads up. There's all sorts of different ways of doing that. You can stick them up, you can screw them up, you can nail them up, but quite often I use staples and I do find them secure enough. Going over this old stuff, sometimes it's a little bit tricky, so this is a little thing that I like to do every now and again should you find yourself in a bit of a tricky situation with trying to get your beads up and nice and in line with your door frames. Now, as you can see, I've run some scrim up the backs. Now, another good way of getting these up good is to knock up a bit of multi-finish and stick them up and brush the edges in so it's all behind this part of the bead. But this is dry, and I would say that that is being held quite securely, even though it's off the wall a little bit there on those sunbelts. And as I say, staples in like so. Important thing is to make sure all your corners match up really nicely. So yeah, beading up is normally quite a straightforward thing until something like this happens. They're picking that up. For some reason that is hanging down very low. Now if I go, let's see where the bubble is. Look, you see the gaps there? It's that side. I might mark with a line just where the top of the level hits. I mean really, like both sides. And it's also on the ceiling as well. I don't think you noticed quite so much when there was coating up here, coating's been removed. But yeah, something is happening there, isn't it? And I don't think I could live with myself if I followed the curve of that, so we're going to have to straighten that up. Okay, so I've just got a couple of staples in here temporarily where the low point is, where it's actually touching. And if I come this side, you can see what it's doing, look. It's disappearing down this end as well. So I think what I'm going to do is just kind of basically get it to where it needs to be. And then we're going to have to kind of try and back it up with a little bit of multi-finish or something to hold that still. You can use pink grip. There's loads of different ways of doing things like this. Like you can see the line, you line that up with that, and that is all over the place. Okay, so temporarily, I've just got a bit of scrim wrapping around that, holding that all together quite nicely. It's all quite level this way. And if I jump up on here, I know it's difficult to show on video, but I'm quite happy. Both those beads are very, very parallel with each other. So all we need to do now, so here, look, let's just get that to hold that still, just for the time being. Okay, it has got a bit fiddly. Probably would have been easier just to stick this with multi, but look, that scrim just was not sticky enough, so I've had to use duct tape, and I've also had to wedge this with another little bit of bead there temporarily. But jumping up there, casting my eye up, again, see, as I'm coming up, casting my eye, I can see both the beads are pretty parallel. And I'm quite happy with that. We can get this fixed. So lucky enough, we've got some of this knocking around the place. Get rid of that because that's in our way now. Nice and gently. Bit of foam behind there. So it starts holding itself together in these deeper areas. Not so bad on this side, it's that other side. Okay, let's just let that pick up, shall we? Shouldn't be long. Some time later. So there we go, looks much more agreeable and it's held very sturdy indeed. Got all these bits trimmed and got some staples in there for good measure. So there we go guys, that is the first coat on and flattened in, and notice I'm not using speed skims or anything like that. I'm sticking with that 20x5 carbon steel trowel, which is predominantly straight. It just kicks up at both ends. It's made by Marshalltown. Okay, as usual, I wasn't too sure exactly how I was going to hit that. I just thought, you know what, let's get 2 bags in that bucket. Well, where's that ceiling on? I could see when I was PBAing, SBRing up, that it was undulated all over the place, so you're never quite certain. And this is one of the reasons I do like to use that trowel, is because it forces me to make things flat, and if you concentrate on getting things flat at the early stages, when it's easier to do so, it makes the later stages a lot easier. When it comes to troweling up and stuff like that, it trowels up much nicer. So I got that ceiling on. I looked in the bucket, I thought, should I get that ceiling out in the hallway there? And I thought, you know what, I've had enough of ceilings for this hit. That's why I threw that last wall on, because it's an easy wall. It's just a flat open space, nothing on it, not even a socket, just a couple of radiator pipes. So I just threw that on. Okay, because some of those areas on the ceiling are deep, and it's over that textured pattern, we need to leave that first coat to pick up a little bit and start holding itself together, because if we put a second coat on there too soon whilst that first coat is still wet, then we're just adding extra wet weight to that first coat, and it's going to sag and the pattern's going to pimple through even more. So that's why we need it to go a little bit further. There is other things you can do to try and eliminate that. You can throw a couple of handfuls of bonding in with that first coat if you wish, and like I say, there's always one way to skin a cat, and lots of different plasters have different ways and their own favourite ways of doing things. So all I'm doing is showing you how I do it. And as per usual, it's going to be kind of like me talking every now and again, a few like action shots, and then probably a long sort of time-lapse thing to some music that I found on YouTube Audio Library. It depends on time. I'll talk to you a little bit later, but yeah, I might see if I can find some new music to put on. Okay. So remember, when you knock up to put your second coat on, it's normally half as much again. So 2 bags to get that on, 1 bag to put the second coat on. Okay, in that first coat, there was a couple of little bits sagging where there were some holes in the ceiling. Let me show you how they hold up now. That is the second coat on. I've not flattened it in. I'm just about to turn back and flatten it in. But because we flattened in that first coat as well as we did, that's how neat it's gone on with the second coat. Okay, so that trowel has finished for today. We're going to switch over to the Rafina Flex 2, but look, it's got quite dirty, isn't it? And this bucket's quite dirty as well. Let's get a couple of these. So there you go guys, that is me done in there for today. That's a long old day. It's like 6 o'clock. 6:15 even. I was here at, was it about 7 AM, around that time I think. So yeah, all that prep and everything took a long time. I don't think I started plastering till something like 2:30. So yeah, the technique we used there was putting on, flattening in with that 20x5 carbon steel trowel. We put the first coat on, flattened in. Then we put the second coat on, flattened it in with a 20x5. Then we took a wet brush to that surface, and then we gave it one little lick with a really nice little Wicks tapered out 4-inch wet brush. Then we gave it the wet one, okay? And then it looked like it was going in really nice. So at that point, I'd put the 20x5 away, and I got that stainless steel Rafina Flex 2 out and gave it 2 goes of that. It never took too sure. Sometimes I just leave it to the last one, sometimes a couple, you know, towards like what happened today. So I had a draft coming through and stuff, and yeah, it just seemed to work. It just, you know, just felt like it. So with that, that's how we plaster. Well, I think I showed a couple of clips there. So there's the residue, you know you're kind of finished, because the residue that comes out of the ceiling or the wall that you're doing is it's getting more and more watery. And as you saw there, I just used a little brush right at the very end. I don't use corner trowels. And we cleaned out the sockets, the downlights. Tomorrow we are back here, and I have had enough for today, so I'm not going to talk to you anymore. I'm going home to see my missus. My left knee really hurts today. So I'll see you in the morning, and we'll continue with this video. Oh, just a quick note actually before I do go and go on to the next day. Yeah, I'm in there with the guy who's organising the job, the builder, and the electricians in there as well, and they got the radio on. So that is why these videos are evolving in the sense of how the music's on there and what I'm able to record and what I'm not able to record, you know, within the idea of capturing somebody else's image without their permission and stuff. I'm sure it's all fine and stuff, but you know, you're better off being on the safe side, aren't you? So definitely with the radio on, any copyright on there. So that's why the videos have evolved, that I've just been scooting through the audio library and finding decent music to for you guys to watch plastering to. So that's probably what I'm going to do with this one as well. Good morning guys. As far as the video is concerned, this is tomorrow, but for me it's today. But when you're watching this, it will probably be a couple of days ago. I'm glad I didn't do too much in the walls in here. I'm a little bit discombobulated in here because we've still got the electrician in here doing bits and pieces, and they're still moving sockets around and stuff. So of course, this kitchen area to do, yeah. We've got this to do in here as well, and we've got this porch area, hallway to do as well. And I think I'm going to get out here and start tackling this. I haven't prepped up anything in there at all yet because of the massive great big fridge in there. Obviously we had some mess around here, but look, I'm glad I didn't do any of the walls in here because sockets have been moved and filled, and I thought maybe I could get on in here, but look, this has been cut out now, which I assume is going to be replaced. I can get the ceiling on in there, but yeah, I don't think there's anything more I can do in here until further instructions. So today, this has all been changed because they were surface mounted, so now they're in the wall. So yeah, I think out here. So yeah, the logistics of this job have been a little bit tricky, working around the electrician and what needs to be done. It's just running, you know, just a little bit late, but it's just one of those things, isn't it? It just is what it is. If I could get in here with everything ready, then maybe I could plough through it in a little bit more of an economical fashion, but it's not always like that, is it? One exciting thing though is we put my 20x5 carbon steel trowel by Marshall trowel, which is predominantly straight. Let's go and have a look how clean that is now. Oh, look at the colour of that water in there. That's quite a good sign. Okay, here's the Rafina, which wasn't too bad in the first place. Look at that. Okay, and here's the 20x5. So yeah, we've been getting quite a bit of build up on it, on the top. Oh, look, there's still a bit left. Well, you can see it does do a good job of it, doesn't it? Look. I'm going to have to finish this off. It looks like possibly a bit of sand and a float. Look at the colour of that, what's coming off of it. Look at that. Just dirty water. There's quite a lot of plaster retarder in there. Struggled on this glass yesterday. I was hoping all this would go as well. If you do clean your trowel up and you've got wooden handle, it's a good idea to take them off. Yeah, it's not. I've had better results. See the colour of that water in there now. Okay, whilst there's nobody about and there's no radios on, etc. Quick look in here, shall we? This is the 49 metre room. I think I've already mentioned this. Right now, mate was in here yesterday painting. He's got a good coat of white over everything. That's how we're looking in here now. Everything's all nice, sharp. That's what a freshly painted and plastered room looks like. I mean, it really does bring the room back to being brand new, you know? Right. Let's go on with some work, shall we? So this is a small area, but as you can see, there's lots of little bits of detail, angles, things to pay attention to. And of course nothing is square or anything, you know, sort of wobbly. So I'm probably going to break it up into two bits. I'm going to knock up the first coat, a smaller amount, but knock it out quite thick, take the ceiling out. Once I take the ceiling out, have a look in the bucket, see what's left in there, decide whether we're going to take off, you know, what other bits to take off, depending on how much is left in the bucket, and then do it again, and get the rest of it on, and then we'll see how we are. Sometimes you can get away with breaking up that first coat into two different parts, and if it picks up quick enough, you might be able to knock up and lay the whole lot down with one gauge. If not, you have to break up that second bucket as well. So yeah, let's just get to it, you know. General idea, but be ready to change at a moment's notice. And remember, in here our primer has been neat SBR the whole way, so it kills a lot of subjects, so we're going to get a full setting time no matter what we put on. that's what we got on initially. Let's get this flattened in, under control before we move any further forward. Okay, so the first coat is all on and flattened in, but I'm having to break up this second coat. This has gone a lot more, and on that SBR it's hanging around and got a little bit of bubbling as well. Second coat is all on and flattened in. Now it's just a case of seeing it home. Okay, so that little area is complete, but if I want to be able to finish this tomorrow, I'm still going to have to pull my finger out and put another decent shift in. I reckon I'm going to have to knock up another good couple of bags, and the walls are in the right state in that main area. We're going to have a look at them in a minute, but you know, sometimes things are just so busy, aren't they? I mean, I had to get it done. Yes, I think I was out of here about 6:15 in the evening yesterday. I had to start. I didn't have too much to do. Oh, I had a video that I needed to get up and uploaded. Now tonight I'm going for, I can't be too late because at 6:30 I've got to go to dinner with my father-in-law, and then tomorrow is Friday, and then Saturday morning I'm supposed to be going to Christchurch and supposed to be going camping, so I've got to load up the motor with camping stuff. It's just life in the fast lane, eh? So I need this done, matey needs it done because the kitchen's turning up Tuesday, blah 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 blah. Same old story, isn't it? So that is why I am pushing hard again to get this done. Let's get back in there, shall we? Okay, so we knocked up and pushed on with this wall and this wall. Then I turned back around and flattened it in, and then I knocked up and got this wall on, and now this wall is ready to put the second coat on. Oh, with this as well, I had a little bit left over, and I had enough to get this head on, and this head on, and that reveal as well. So that's what I mean, you've got little bits and pieces. There's always a little home for it to go. You shouldn't really be chucking it away. Right, let's mix up again. I've got a little bit of dirty water from that previous gauge. I'm going to wash this round, I'm going to keep that. And we're going to get the second coat on this and this. So we are all second coated and flattened in. So all we need to do now is just see this home cross the finish line, and then for today we will be done. So this has all been second coated and flattened in. Okay, so I'm just about to take my wet brush to it, so all we need to do now is keep up with it, see it home, and then we will be done for the day.
That's what I think, running around for my kids now, I think like that.
Yeah, because like I say, I used to do things like go paddleboarding and stuff like that, but now I just can't even be asked. Another day, another dollar. What's the time? It's before 5. 4:30 or something. So yeah, let's go home, get showered, get ready to go out for dinner. See you in the morning. Morning guys, it's Friday and it's the last day of the week. I've got to go camping tomorrow. I've left myself a reasonably easy day today on the job, as you saw from earlier in the video, and because I was going out last night with a father-in-law who was quite a formidable drinking buddy. He's 81. Anyway, I feel a little bit worse for wear. I've had one too many last night, but other than that, we're all good to go and get this job sorted out. So let's get over there and start doing some work. So here we are in this little section here for the final push of the job. Apparently I don't need to touch this at all, because units are going top, maybe just at the top apparently. I think it's all this wall, all this. I'm not allowed to put beads on here because he won't be able to get his door on or something like that, so all I can do is feather into there. And I believe this is just having units all around it in here as well. Maybe that high, I don't know exactly, I haven't seen the plan, so yeah. One thing that is to notice actually, because I've got the SBR on all these walls, yeah. So as I'm screwing up here, I'm just checking out this Artex. So it's not the Artex that's failing, it's the paint on the Artex for some reason. It's really kind of like dusty, they were getting a bit of a distemper effect. But coming back here, trying to dig into it, it's quite solid. So I think it's just where the whole coving was, and it's just popped off there for some reason, just on the very, very edges. But it's well worth, you know, if you do notice anything like that flaking on the ceiling, either it's the paint or the Artex or whatever, have a little check around, because there's nothing worse than coming up and starting to do your final troweling, and then you get massive great big blisters in it, and for some reason or other the paint has failed or the Artex has failed, and your ceiling starts becoming the floor. Okay, first things first, if you remember this bit up here, just got some dirty water and some bonding in there, because if you remember, you see how deep that is there. Okay, so this bonding has gone off hard, so it's good to plaster over. Right, let's refamiliarise ourselves with what we've got to do. This ceiling, this top part of this wall, of course, all this little bit under here, and this wall in its entirety, and I'll see if I can get a bit on this sill over here, because I'm not sure whether they're going to put the window board on there or not, and it's just these two reveals. Okay, so there we go, I've knocked up this much and I've knocked it up quite chubby, which I quite often do anyway, because obviously we need to achieve the depth going over this textured finish. it does help to mix up the plaster a little bit stiffer than what you normally would if you was going straight over boardwork or something like that. So I've knocked up enough to complete the ceiling, then I'll have a look in the bucket as usual and then decide where to go with what's remaining in there. Even though it's a small amount in here, I don't mind breaking it up into 2 bits because as I mentioned before, I worked so hard yesterday, I didn't eat all day, so by the time I went out to dinner I ate so much and it's caused me to feel a little bit sluggish today. So yeah, I don't mind a bit of a slow plod through today just to see this to the end. And this is quite often what I like to do with jobs like this. I do like to finish on an easy day as far as plastering is concerned. Because look, it's the 3rd day in here and it's not all my mess, but you know, it's getting dirtier and dirtier and dirtier in here. Up to about 3 days of working in here, we need to have a good clean up. So when this is all sort of like picking up and stuff, I can just potter around and start cleaning the place up and have it looking spick and span by the time we leave. Right, let's get on, shall we? Let's get the ceiling going. Okay, so we've got the ceiling on, we've got that back wall, and I'll put a tiny little bit, the first coat over that sill there, look. Just to use up the remainder of what was in there, so I've got this residue left inside the bucket. I'm going to wash that around with clean water and use the dirty water then to accelerate this next bucket over here, which is going to go on here and on here. I'll just pick up the rest of the stuff here. Okay, let's have a recap as to where we are at. So we knocked up a bucket, put this and this on, didn't we? Then we knocked up another bucket, then we put this and this on, and we picked up some stuff, and it still left me the reveals. This first bucket, I've just knocked up and put the second coat on the ceiling up here and second coat on here, and I've put a second coat across there because I had a little bit left over. This sill is being built up, and then with this bucket full, I managed to get enough to get these reveals on as well, so that all we've got left now to put the second coat on is this wall, the underside here, and those reveals over there. So yeah, let's get this flattened in and then move on to that bit. Okay, everything has been second coated. So we need to just see this across the finish line, as per usual. Time to switch to the Rafina. We are complete. Right guys, thanks so much for watching that video. That was a long haul, that job. It was hard work. What can I say? It's just another day in the life of a plasterer who's 51 years old. And it's probably getting too old for this sort of stuff anymore. But here we are, still doing it. So yeah, I've got this video edited and I'm going to get it up probably for tomorrow, I think. I'm not sure what the time is now. It's like 7:15. Still need a shower and stuff, so I'm going to do that and get myself sorted and get my head into camping mode, okay? So yeah, I'm going to go to Christchurch. In the meantime, please do enjoy this video. Don't forget to come over to the Facebook group, Plaster Master Smurf 74. Should you want to talk to me and other plasterers, there's a really good group there. Anyway, so guys, again, thank you very much for watching this video, and I will see you again on the next one, which I'm sure will not be too far away. Alright, take it easy.